I know that sometimes I can be hot-tempered and cruel to her. But it's all stress, but stress made me do terrible things. All I wanted was for her to shut up, and one day she shut up with a little help.
Australian Kathleen Megan Donovan, born in 1967, married Craig Gibson Falburn. It was an ordinary family, but in 1989, they gave birth to a boy, Galen Gibson. In general, he was an ordinary child, but Kathleen noticed a problem with his breathing, and she took him to the hospital, and he was diagnosed with laryngomalacia, one of the most popular breathing diseases in infants. Usually not a very terrible disease, but sometimes. And one night, the husband woke up from further screams in the child's room and went there and saw Kathleen sobbing over the child's bed. He went to the bed and saw the child wrapped in a blanket. He was still warm, but was not breathing. He tried to give him artificial respiration, but it didn't help. And when the ambulance arrived only 3 hours later, but Caleb was already dead. Kathleen and Caleb really wanted a child, so a year later, on June 3rd, 1990, Patrick Allen Folbig was born. This time, everything seemed to be fine, but after 5 months, the story repeated itself. And the husband wakes up again at night because of screams. He enters the room. The same thing. Catelyn is crying and the child is not breathing. He reacted quickly, and when the ambulance arrived, they managed to save the child. But after 2 days, he died due to breathing problems, and he had no vision at all. After that, Kathleen was no longer interested in anything, but she didn't even imagine what it had just started. Afterwards, they tried again to get a healthy child, and they seemed to succeed. But when it happened... But when Craig was at work, he called, and there were screams and only 3 words. It happened again. The official reason is asphyxia or other things. Not enough oxygen, but there is only one thing. But not a single child has found the causes of these problems, including asphyxia, lack of oxygen, blindness. But Karen and Craig really wanted a child who would at least be alive, and a year later, they give birth to a girl, Sarah Allen Folbig. Sarah, like the other children, was normal, and except that she had an infection with her lungs, Kathleen quit her job to be with her child, but after 10 months, she stopped breathing and everything happened again. Ambulance, tears, and lack of clear causes of death. Through everything they've been through, they didn't give up. They moved to another city and started a new life. 5 years later, Laura Elizabeth Folbig was born. They have been monitoring Laura's health since birth. Call specialists to prevent this from happening again. The doctors gave her a device to analyze Laura's health. And this time the child turned 1 year old. The father worked and the mother took up sports. Karen and Craig began to sleep separately and grew distant from each other. But the marriage lasted only because of their daughter. But suddenly there was thunder, and my daughter vomited. Breathing problems, flu, lung infection, treatment, and death. A child dies in bed at the age of 18 months. The cause of death was not determined. Kaylig, Patrick, Sarah, and Laura. 4 children, 4 deaths, 4 strange deaths. Did you notice the emphasis on the word strange? Interesting. Why did I create it? Maybe then you will think that this is really strange. After that, Kathleen didn't have children again, not because she didn't want to, but because Craig finds Kathleen's diary. Haven't you noticed that there's something wrong with all this? Maybe why was it only Kathleen who found the children dead at night? I already see that you too have noticed something. Craig was sad. They separated, and after a long time, he returned to the house where they lived together to pick up the remaining things. But there he found Kathleen's secret diary, which she had kept for more than 10 years.
I know that sometimes I can be hot-tempered and cruel to her. So she left, but with a little help, stress made her do terrible things, and she fell silent. With a little help, with 3 other children, I didn't bother myself with thoughts about school and their teenage affairs, because they were all smooth. They won't get to that point.
Father understood everything. That's why they should only let him die when he's sleeping or at work. And if he doesn't die because of illness or something else, they got help. He contacted the police in 2001. 2 years after the death of the last child, he showed the police in shock. They arrested Kathleen and Noshal's diaries. There was no need to look for the reason for the death of children in children. The reason was with them all this time. Everything was true at the trial, and wanted to put Kathleen in jail. Showed several clues and found out that when Kathleen was a little girl, her father killed her mother with a knife, saying, "If I didn't do this, she would have killed my child." In the diary, I saw the phrase, "Obviously, I'm my father's daughter," and it killed her. This news was already in all the media.
The Australian woman was yesterday convicted of murdering 4 of her children by strangulation during sleep. New South Wales in Sydney stated that 35-year-old Kathleen Folbick was outraged that her children were preventing her from sleeping and playing sports.
After all the evidence, Kathleen was convicted in 2005 of the cause of strangulation of 4 children, and she was called the most cruel mother in the world.
For the death of Caleb? Are you responsible for the death of Patrick?
No.
But it's not so simple, and the big argument of the accusations was based on the fact that the sudden death of a child is 1 in 8,002. 2 children are already 1 in 73 million, so Kathleen was imprisoned for 30 years. But after some time after the trial, many began to learn more and more about this. And it turned out that there can be more reasons for death. For example, an infection in the house, a mutation, and according to other studies, it has been shown that if the first child died suddenly from nothing, this also happens. Then the next children have a 5 times greater chance that other children will also die suddenly. And the doctor also said that 1 child had an infection at trial. He said that she strangled 2 children, but the media still thought that Karen killed her children. What do you think? Write in the comments and don't forget like and subscribe.